Welcome to the Explainer. Okay, today we are investigating what is literally the absolute biggest debate in AI right now. So the story goes that AI is supposed to make you 10 times more productive, right? But a massive survey of 6,000 executives just came out and said it did absolutely nothing for their bottom line. Today, we're going to dig into the actual numbers to figure out why, amazingly, both of those statements are entirely true.
Here's a contradiction that should really bother you. We keep seeing study after study coming out saying that AI makes individual workers dramatically faster. Like we're talking about individual task output literally doubling in some cases. But on the flip side, a massive globally respected survey just found that at the firm level, the overall company level, there was 0% measurable impact on productivity. And honestly, the craziest part of this entire mystery, both of those things are entirely true at the exact same time. So we're going to break down exactly how that is mechanically possible. Section 1. Individual gains are real. If you've been feeling like you're working at warp speed lately using tools like ChatGPT or Claude, well, you aren't imagining things. The individual data totally backs you up. The Stanford AI Index 2026 pulled together multiple task-level studies, and the numbers are undeniably impressive across the board. In customer support, workers are seeing 14 to 15% productivity gains. In software development, they're 26% faster. And in marketing, up to 50% more output. So the individual level evidence is completely on your side here. And it gets even more extreme depending on your exact role. There's a widely cited statistic specifically for programmers showing that they can produce 126% more output per week with AI assistance. I mean, that is more than double the output from a single individual just by introducing an AI tool into their workflow. But it's really important to note that this builds beyond just raw speed. A fascinating Harvard Business School study proves this. Isn't just about rushing through tasks and making a bunch of mistakes. They found that workers completed tasks 25.1% faster, but crucially, their quality ratings were actually over 40% higher. So it's not speed at the expense of getting it right. And this brings up a really encouraging fairness angle. Novice workers actually benefit roughly 2.4 times more than the average worker. AI acts as this kind of skill compressor. It raises the floor way faster than it raises the ceiling, meaning the person who literally just started on the job often gains the absolute most from these tools. Section 2. The missing company impact. All right, so we've established the individual gains are massive, but here's where the whole 10x everything story completely breaks down when we zoom out to the macro data. This brings us to a highly influential working paper titled Firm Data on AI. That's NBER paper 34836. And let me be clear, this wasn't some tiny poll. This survey was conducted between November 2025 and January 2026 by massive institutions. We're talking the Federal Reserve Bank of Atlanta, the Bank of England, and the Deutsche Bundesbank. They asked identical questions to nearly 6,000 CEOs, CFOs, and senior finance managers globally. The scope here is just undeniable.
First off, you might be wondering, is it just that nobody is actually using it at work? Nope. 69% of firms said they actively use AI. Over 2/3 of these major companies have rolled it out. So lack of adoption is definitely not the problem. But here is the jarring macro disconnect. Despite that really high usage, 90% of these surveyed firms reported absolutely no measurable impact on jobs or productivity over the previous 3 years. None. It wasn't a negative impact, it was just nothing they could detect in their numbers. Think about how strange this picture is. Most companies are using the tools, most individual studies show huge gains, and yet the overall company needle isn't moving an inch.
We actually get a huge clue buried right in that exact same survey. Even among the executives who say they regularly use AI, their average usage was only about 1.5 hours a week. And when asked to look forward, these same executives forecast that AI will raise labor productivity by a mere 1.4% on average over the next 3 years. That's a real but incredibly modest expectation. It shows us we are a long, long way from a 10x revolution at the enterprise level. Section 3. The cost of Workslop. Okay, let's dive into this, because this right here is the missing piece of the mystery. Where did all those individual time savings actually go if they didn't show up in the company's bottom line? Well, researchers at BetterUp Labs and the Stanford Social Media Lab gave this phenomenon a name, and once you hear it, I promise, you can't unhear it. They call it Workslop. Workslop is AI-generated work that looks highly polished on the surface. Perfect grammar, nice formatting, but it's actually unhelpful, low effort, or just plain low quality. What it really does is push the actual cognitive burden, the actual thinking, off the sender and straight on to whoever receives the message. And honestly, it's everywhere. In a September 2025 survey of over 1,000 full-time U.S. desk workers, a staggering 40% reported receiving work slump in just the past month alone. Here is the mechanical resolution to our entire paradox. The researchers found that each incident of Workslop takes the recipient nearly 2 hours to fix, clarify, or completely untangle. So imagine person A uses AI to generate a report or an email in 5 minutes that would have normally taken them an hour. Boom. That's the individual gain the studies are measuring. But because it's half-baked Workslop, person B now has to spend 2 hours fixing it. The time didn't magically disappear from the universe, it just moved downstream, off the sender spreadsheet and onto a totally frustrated colleague. When you multiply that across a whole organization, the individual gains quietly cancel out. In the financial scale, becomes mind-blowing. The researchers estimated this weighs about $186 per employee per month. If you scale that up to a 10,000-person company, that equates to over $9 million a year in wasted time. But it gets worse, right? Because there is a brutal social cost to this too. Sending half-baked AI work severely damages your professional reputation. According to the data, if you send Workslop, about half of your colleagues will view you as less capable, 42% will see you as less trustworthy, and roughly a third say they'd be less likely to ever want to work with you again. Sending slop doesn't just waste company time, it actively damages how people perceive your professional worth.
Section 4. How to fix it.
The practical takeaway here isn't that AI doesn't work. It's that the games are fragile, and you personally control them. Let's walk through 3 essential habits to make sure you stay on the productive side of AI. Number 1, never forward raw AI output. If you didn't read every single line and fix what's wrong, you aren't saving time. You're just transferring your work to someone else and charging them interest. Number 2, use AI where you are the expert, not where you're a tourist. The gains are safest when you can instantly spot a bad answer. That's exactly how you avoid sending slop. And number 3, treat AI as a first draft engine, not a final draft printer. The ultimate judgment of whether something is right and useful has to stay with you. Now, to keep this completely impartial, let's review a few caveats. First, firm-level productivity simply takes years to measure. Remember, electricity took decades to actually show up in economic data, so no measurable impact yet doesn't mean AI does nothing. Second, individual studies are directional evidence. They aren't universal laws of physics. They show AI clearly helps on well-defined tasks when an expert is in the loop. And third, Workslop is fundamentally a user problem, not proof of a broken tool. The exact same AI can produce a genuine time save or a pile of slop. It depends entirely on the person driving it. Which leaves us with a really empowering thought. You are the difference maker here. So I want to leave you with this final question. Have you been on the receiving end of Workslop? Or, if you're being brutally honest with yourself, have you caught yourself about to send it? Think about how you hand off your work this week. If you found this explainer helpful, please subscribe for more data-driven deep dives. Thanks for learning with me today, and I'll catch you next time.